Yitnu, this is what they should give. All that are counted, every Jew was counted. So you should give, and that's the age of 20 to 60. Machtes HaShekel, but the chivas on everybody, even at all ages, from 13 and up. Machtes HaShekel, so the pasuk says, how much do you give? A half a shekel. The shekel HaKodesh of the holy shekel. How much is a holy shekel? Esrim Geira HaShekel, 20 Geira. How much should be given is half of that, which is of course 10. Machtes HaShekel, Trum al Hashem, as an elevated offering to Hashem. Right, there are actually three donations that Yidden had to give. The ones referring to here is the yearly annual Machtes HaShekel, which went towards the purchase of Karbonos, the public Karbonos Tzibur. They were offered throughout the year, and this way everybody has a share in it. That's the idea. The Karbonos were purchased from this fund. If you do idea, but it's known the Shaila, the question on the pasuk. The Lechaira pasuk is saying this commandment in a very complicated way. It could have been stated far simpler. The point is you have to give a half. So why does the pasuk say a whole shekel is esim geira shekel? Just say v'havali loimer say yitnu esa geira. Give 10 geira. Give a half a shekel, which is 10 geira. It's obvious that the whole one is esrim. It's irrelevant that the whole one is esrim to the tzivui, to the commandment. That's one shaila. But Yesen and moving seder aksuvim, the order of the commandment of the instruction here. It starts off saying, you have to give a half a shekel. Then he says what a whole shekel is. And then repeats that you have to give a half a shekel. He says it twice essentially. That's the question here. Look at the pasuk. And then it concludes again, Machsa shekel Trum al Hashem. Just not sure a little bit why he phrases the question as seder aksuvim rather than repetition. The shaila is the repetition. It seems, as he concludes his question. So it's why is it the half shekel repeated? In the general sense, that's a question on the order of the way the flow of the pasuk. At any rate, because it could be is implying another question that is asked elsewhere. Before you say machzis, if you're going to mention a whole shekel, first you say a whole shekel. You start off saying a whole shekel is because you don't have how much half is. So you say a whole shekel is 20, and then you say give half. If you have to mention the whole shekel, that should be said first, not secondary. That's the question on the Seder. It's a separate question, kind of. So in summary, the pasuk simply could have said, give 10 geira. Give a half a shekel, which is 10 geira. That's all you got to say. You don't have to mention that a whole shekel is 20 geira. You don't have to repeat the tzivur to give half a shekel. Right? That's the basic questions. But the Kudus Abirbus, the explanation is in general, the avodah melamata lamayla of us reaching out to the Eibishter, which is what avodah is, but mispar eser is encapsulated in the number 10. Why? The hainu shavodah here be'eser keichas hanefesh. We've got to give God all we got. And what is it? All that we have? It's 10 keichas hanefesh. And therefore it's understood, since we are giving our 10 keichas, that they're drawing from above, which is two things. Not the response to our avodah, but also in the brackets, to begin with, the empowerment, the help and the empowerment, that we should serve God. So both the empowerment and the response from Hashem is also expressed in the number 10, because it's a relationship. It's measure for measure. Midah keneged midah, right? Measure for measure. It's not like the way it's understood simply. You only get what you put in. Midah keneged midah. God responds measure for measure. What it's really saying is that it's a relationship. It's a relationship with us that Hashem desires. So therefore, he responds to us as a response to our connection to him. Or rephrasing that, our connection to him touches him if we're connecting, giving ourselves. And what are we made up of? 10 kochos hanefesh. And that's what I'm giving of me. So what am I touching? I'm touching within God. That's parallel within him. A relationship can only be when you share something in common. You don't share something in common with something, you can't have a relationship with it. So the whole point is a connection, a tzivui, a tzavta connection. So it's midah keneged midah. That's the point of it. Otherwise, it's not a relationship, period. It's not that God's holding back. I'm only going to give you what you give me, not getting more. First of all, we do get more, but that's also part of the relationship. Let's go further. Now, what's the ikir is the avodah melamata lamayla. What's precious to God is what we give him. And it's that elicits God's response. So it's not so much God's response, it's God, he wants us. So therefore, we're starting to answer the pasuk here. First, the pasuk begins with Yitnu, what should you give? Half a shekel, that's the 10. Kochos hanefesh, that's the pasuk begins with that, because that is the ikir. That's why we're here to serve Hashem. And then the pasuk says, and that will create a response of 20, of a whole shekel. Then the pasuk then goes on to explain the divine response, and that's this esrim gera shekel, but it doesn't answer yet why it concludes with machsa shekel as the third point. This only answers why he answers one of the question, why is it negir, the esrim gera shekel? Because that's the result of our relationship, is this whole shekel. It starts with our half because the ikir is avodah, which precipitates and creates the relationship. That's the outline. Again, not having answered though why the pasuk repeats at the end, machsa shekel trumal Hashem. We're clear? The shailis? Yeah. Let's begin now. Excuse me. Yuvin calls up here Maimon Admo and understand this in light of a Maimon of the Alter Rebbe was be Maimon Admo with further explanation from a Maimon of the Mittel Rebbe. Right, two separate Maimorim. Al Pasuk in the Pasuk of the Parsha, Vela Mishpatim Meshatosim Lifneihem. And these are the laws that Abishah tells Moishe should place before them. The Yesh Ledaktik Lo Manem Meshatosim Lifneihem. What is it? Place before them? V'linema Beloshen Harogi Leshatosim Lem. Place to them. What's before them? Lohem also means for them. What's Lifneihem? Now Rashi, it's a question, Pshuta Shemikra. What does Rashi answer? Huh? Yeah, meaning they got to give the reasons. You have to give the reasons like a set table. The simple explanation is if they have the reasons, they can apply these to other cases, etc. And they can take ownership. Yeah, like a set table. That's the reason. That's the answer in Pshuti Mikra. We're going to see another answer. Gam tzarich lahav. Another question, however, ma'adig haloshen tosim dafke. Teach, place. These are the laws you should convey, you should say, you should relate. Why tosim? Now that also the Chayr is answered by Rashi, set out like a set table. So the answers before them. So the word lifneim is pnimius, ponim, meaning the Knesset Yisrael. You've got to give the Torah, says David, to Moishe in such a way that it penetrates their innards. Give it to them that it enters into them in the most internal way. This is connected to the simple meaning, because if you give the reasons, then you're not just surrendering to the halacha, you're understanding it, you're taking it in. So it's connected also to the simple meaning. But here we're going beyond the reason, we mean the godliness, the likus, as the Maimon will go on to explain. This is so far from the Alter Rebbe and the Mittel Rebbe. The Rebbe adds now something novel. The Kivim Sheba Parshas Mishpatim Ne'amre Tekev Lachan Matan Torah. Since Mishpatim is said right after Matan Torah, he tells us to see Rashi because, let me ask you, why is he saying it a Pirish Rashi? A child knows Mishpatim because after Yisrael.
The Eila is that it's right after, as opposed to Eila. Or no, but the Eila time. The Eila is that it's connected to Matan Torah specifically.
No, that's another diuk actually. It's because there's no sage in Torah necessarily. It's lav dafka that Parshas Mishpatim was said after Matan Torah. Actually proves that it was. That's the diuk here that actually was actually the first thing conveyed after Matan Torah. That diuk is that these commandments were not conveyed now post Matan Torah, but they were also said on Matan Torah. That's the diuk of Ve'ela. But the subject matter here is whether this parsha actually was said post Matan Torah at some other point. There's no seder. Fascinatingly, especially when it comes to Matan Torah, and describing Matan Torah is completely disjointed. In Parshas Kisis, we go back to Erev Matan Torah. Beautiful Burim of the Rebbe on it, why Daf gets that way. At any rate, so the Rebbe is adding, since Parshas Mishpatim would sit after Matan Torah, and therefore what? Bring the Matan Torah Giloi Apnimius to the Maila. Once Matan Torah, Hashem revealed his inner self. B'apnimius the Bnei Yisrael, touching the inner of a Yid, Moshe Koso, like Moshe Rabbeinu says in Parshas Veschanon, describing Matan Torah, he says, Ponim beponim dibaravayim mochem, face to face. And what's face is pnimius. Because the face expresses one's pnimius. Look at somebody's mood, what's going on inside, look at his face. You not look at his hand, you're not going to see, or his back. But the face expresses the pnimius. It's all in the eyes, right? Lachein madgisha koso. So the Rebbe, since Matan Torah is pnimius to pnimius, therefore the pasuk underscores veila mishpatim shatosim lifneihem. So now continuing that says they should to Moishe give the halachas in the way of pnimius. Hainu shegam laachri Matan Torah, not just Matan Torah at the outset, but continuously. So the Chli hamshach bepnimius dafke. The hamshach has to be bepnimius, as the mind will explain. What does this mean? Bepnimius.